DinCon Week 3. I'm Yinuo Chen, and I am a 20-year-old level artist intern at Massive, and I'm doing the internship to finish up my final year at West DAE. And I'm here today to break down my Sankari Village scene with you guys. I hope you will learn something from it. So I wanted to introduce myself a little bit first. Like I said, I'm currently studying at DAE. It is a game art school, or not just game art, game development school in Belgium. And I got into 3D there because when I enrolled, I actually wanted to do something else. But then during school, I realized that I actually didn't want to do that. But luckily, I found a passion for 3D there, and 3 years later, we're here. So I do both realistic and stylized stuff. And I do this because I think both styles are very pretty, and I mean, I make environments to make pretty pictures, right? So it just makes sense for me to try doing both at least. And finally, I am doing my internship at Massive as a level artist. It has been a really, really great experience so far. I promise I'm not saying that just because Jeremy's here. But it has really, really been great. I've gotten a lot of amazing like responsibilities, and I've definitely learned a lot. So if any of you are looking for an internship, get on Massive. Okay, so about this project, like how it kind of started. This started as a game project for school. We had to do a group project in our final year, and I did this with 3 other artists and 2 programmers. So another artist was a character artist, and the other one was FX. And I was the only environment artist working on it. And because it was a game project in school, we had a couple of limitations put on us. Like not just because of that, but other factors as well. And the first one was definitely time. So, like I said, we were 3 artists, and I made all the environments. And we had 2 months to do the whole game project. And for some reason, we decided to do 5 levels. So this was one of the levels in the 5 levels. This wasn't even actually a combat level. This is just like the kind of home base. And the point of the game was that you were supposed to save the village. So in the beginning, it's like very dark and gloomy. And then as you progress in the game, so you defeat like the fire level, earth, water, air levels, and then the village gradually gets prettier and prettier. And then in the end, it looks like this, like the shot that I'm showing right now. So yeah, so I had to do the 5 levels, and then also other art assets for the game, like creating and implementing the UI. So during the game project itself, I had about 2 to 3 weeks working on it, like working on this village alone. And then afterwards, after the project, I polished it up for ArtStation. So that was the first limitation, time, and then the second one was gameplay. So yeah, it's for a game, so it has to be playable. So then that means that I couldn't like pull any tricks, like scale something smaller to make it look further away or something. Like it had to be in real scale, right? So the character can actually like run around here and whatever, and the collisions had to work and stuff. And then the third thing was optimization. So we were hoping for the game to run at 60 FPS, and it definitely can run at 60 FPS on lower settings. Definitely not on this setting. But yeah, we definitely had to make sure that the game we weren't like pulling any crazy stuff with the shaders and stuff, just to make sure that it was playable at the end. Oh, okay. So then about the village itself. So my intentions with this village was because this is like the scene after you finish the game. I wanted it to look very cozy, very inviting, because it should give a real sense of accomplishment to the player, right? So that was kind of the mood that I was looking for, and I think quite obviously the scene is like very inspired by like the Ghibli style. It's very fantasy, very makes you feel nice. And also while we were working on this project, everyone on the team was obsessed with Genshin Impact, so that was also very much a inspiration for us. We also have like the cell shaded character and the with the outline and stuff, and I also made those shaders, but since they're not in the village, I don't think I'll be going through them today. Okay, so now diving into the technical solutions. So like how I put together the scene. So obviously since it's a medieval village, it's like you have to make it modularly. It's like obvious that you have to make it modularly. So I had like a couple of wall pieces. I think maybe like 3 in total. Yeah, 3 in total. So I had this one, which was like a bear one, and then this one that had an X on it, and then this one that had like the slash. And to put them together, I had some like reference of medieval villages. And then I just like looked at them and like saw the pieces. So like this one had a dash and whatever. And then I just kind of made them as I went. Like if I felt like the scene needed more variation, like the walls, then I would make a new variation and stuff like that. And then I had like two windows. So this is the first window, and then this is the second window. And then I had like one gabled roof, one half gabled roof, um, one of these, and then I used like the same chimney everywhere. This was like because I was super low on time, so this is all the same chimney. This is the same chimney, and I made a round chimney as well. And then just a couple of like decoration pieces, like for example, this piece. And this is just the same as this piece. It just has a different material as the wall. Um, and they also had like one platform. It was very much like when as I go, I felt like I needed something, so I would just make it really fast and then put it in, you know? And the reason why this worked like well was because I was using the Sunset Overdrive trim method. So I can show you guys the trim. Oh, by the way, Jeremy, if I'm going too fast, let me know because I know I talk really fast sometimes. Okay, so okay, nice. Slow it down by like zero point 0.5. I hear my voice like super low pitch. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is the trim that we use. I didn't even fill it up all the way. But yeah, I had like four different wood pieces. I did the 45-degree angle thing to get a soft edge. It doesn't. I don't think it works like perfectly, but it works well enough, and that's what matters. So it worked well enough. I had four wood pieces here. I just made them really quick in Blender with a bevel, and then I took them to ZBrush, sculpted in the grains. You can't see them really well because there's no light like directly casting on this trim, but yeah, I sculpted a normal map and then took that to Substance, did some painting, and that's it. So I just had these wood pieces, one metal thing that like everything metal in the scene is just unwrapped onto this, and then one rope texture, and then also like two end pieces that I didn't actually texture at the end. But they work fine. So that's the trim, and that allowed me to have a super fast workflow because like yeah, like the scene had to be put together super fast for the game. So having this and the modular pieces means that I could just make as many pieces as I needed to, or whatever props that I needed to, without worrying about like, oh, I need to make a high poly for this and that will add more time or whatever. Like it was very low cost. I just made stuff as I saw fit and they fit somewhat fine in the game. So that was the modular. Yep, yep. Okay, yeah. And then with the like normally when you work with modular pieces, they can look very repetitive. And so in the shader, I did some color variation and some moss and other things that I will get into later when I start talking about shaders. Um, and then yes, next is the tileable textures. So yeah, for a fast workflow, like having tileable textures is like super necessary. So like for the roofs, for example, I made a tileable texture. If I can find it here. So that's the roof. Yeah, tileable texture, and I exported two different color variations. And those were made in Substance Designer. And then also like for the brick, no, that's the plaster. Yeah, for the plaster, I had a variation with no crack and then one with cracks. And then also like the bricks, which is just like the gray brick you see here. And then yeah, stone tiles for the terrain, just stuff like that, like tileable textures that I made when I needed yeah, tiling textures to fill it up instead of like doing unique stuff. And for these, because I didn't really know a lot of Substance Designer before I started this project, it really allowed me to explore a lot of the functionality that Substance Designer has. And I think for stylized projects, like Substance Designer has like so many different filters and things that you can do, like warps and stuff that look very stylized and look really nice. And one resource that I used a lot was this guy called Callison, or this person called Callison on YouTube. You probably heard of him if you looked up stylized textures. He's like super super good, and he makes like these sped up videos of him making the Substance Designer materials, and they're super sped up. But I basically went through them frame by frame and figured out which nodes he was using. And then and yeah, like yeah, and I just did that. And if I needed something myself, then I would try to figure out how to do that as well. Okay, so that's tileable textures, and then next thing is shaders. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about shaders now. For the first shader that I wanted to show was the shader that I used not only for the trim, but for anything that basically needed a like that had a unique texture for stuff. So not tiling textures and stuff. So that I used this texture master. So I made this shader that basically handles like all the like all the unique textures that I need for the oh my god, it looks like spaghetti. but but it handles all the unique textures, like unique materials. And some of the things that I did to break up the texture a little bit, because like when you look at this from far away, you have like these masses of wait, let me yeah, get a gizmo. Okay, so when you have these masses of colors of like just brown, then they look like the same color, which is like not very nice. So then I added some hue shift, like a very slight one. I don't know if you guys can notice it, but it's a very slight hue shift. Where it goes oh, the shadow. Okay, whatever. But it's like orange, and then it goes a bit more redder, and then in some areas it goes a little bit more yellow. So like here, for example, here is a bit more yellow, and also yeah, you can kind of see it. So it modulates a little bit the hue of the color, which adds like a little bit of variation that's kind of nice. So to do that, I just had this noise texture. I packed some random noises that I liked, and I did like a very cheap world position UV for it, because I didn't want it to be UV space, but then because then that like breaks the reason why you would like want to break re- the repetitiveness, you know. So it was roll space, and then it has this noise, and then I remapped it because the noise texture goes from 0 to 1, and I remapped it to like a very low number, and then I put that into a switch because sometimes I don't want color variation, and then I put that into a hue shift. So that hue shifts like the base color texture and stuff like that, and that gives me that color variation, which is nice. And the other thing that I used to break up the colors a little bit more was to have like this green, I guess like leaky moss kind of look, and for that I made a material function because I use this a lot, like this kind of leak mask. And basically what this oh yeah, I'll zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so what this does is first it like well, this is not probably not always necessary for a project, but for mine, like I didn't really because I put together the scene super fast in the beginning. My pivot points aren't in like good locations. Because this one is okay, the pivot point is at the bottom, but like I think one of my modular pieces has like a pivot point in the middle. Yeah, yeah, this one has a pivot point in the middle, which is like not okay for a modular piece. But I didn't have time, and then by the time I realized it was too late, like I already placed them everywhere, so didn't fix it. But basically, the point of the leak thing was to make it like a gradient from top to bottom, and then it would be like a normalized 0 to 1 leak, like a gradient, And because I didn't have like my pivot point set up properly or my units set up properly, to be fair, I mean it is to scale, but y- you know, I couldn't like I had to kind of not really hack it, but like do something in the shader to make it work. And for that, I just first I used local position. And then I use the local bounds node, which yeah tells you the bounds of the object, and and with that you can then remap it to make it like if you use local position and then you remap it with a local bounds, you will get that like 0 to 1 thing if you remap that onto 0 to 1, So then I just did that, and then I powered it with a parameter, and then I had I had another parameter to invert the leak if I wanted it inverted. Yeah, this is a very common thing. I put parameters everywhere just because sometimes when I'm making a shader, I don't really know what I want. And so if I put parameters everywhere, then I can just play around with it and see what I like. And that's like my way of working. so so yeah, and then I multiplied that with a world align texture, which is just this noise, um and that I yeah, I got this noise from my FX artist, and then I world aligned it. I just took one of the channels, multiplied that with the gradient, clamped it, and then for the material function itself, like I didn't bother only outputting an alpha because I know in the shader, like in the main shader, I'm gonna have to do like a lerp with like A and B and use that as alpha. And so then I just decided to do it in the material function itself. So I have a leak parameter that will just show up on the instance, and then you input it like a map, already like a color map for it, and then it will just output the color map and the leak combined. So that was the leak one. Yeah, and then of course have a parameter to use the leak or not. And I also did this thing with AOMOS. That didn't really work. I mean, it did work, but only if I baked the light, and baking the light took too long. So then I didn't end up using it, but it was there. And yeah, and that was just using the using the AO mask, the pre-computed AO mask that you get when you bake ambient occlusion in your lighting. But yeah, that wasn't used. Okay, so that's for the base color, and that's like the things that I did to break up the trim a little bit. And also I'm using the same master material for like basically anything else that has a unique texture. And then next shader is the wall shader. So for the walls, I wanted like some variation in the cracks. And I knew that you could do it with vertex color, but I didn't have the time to paint vertex color onto like each wall. So I just decided to do it with the noise. But the issue with just doing it with a noise, like if you just lerped a noise and had a brick and then the wall, was that you wouldn't get like these cracks, you know? Or like you could get them if you made a really complex shader, but then that would be pretty expensive. So what I did was I showed this earlier as well when I showed my tiling materials. Yeah, so what I did was I exported one version with the normals as well, like a cracked version of the wall. And then I also had a plaster, like the clean version of the wall. And then in the shader, I mask some of them out using a noise, which does result in like harsh lines sometimes, but it's not very noticeable. So I didn't really like it wasn't really an issue for me. And so you see here, like it randomizes the pattern of the bricks, and then also at some points it will like actually mask it out. You see? Like so here's a harsh line from the mask. So like that, and then the good thing about that is that then I can go into the wall material instance. It's all mossy because it's a 0 to 1 thing and doesn't really work with that unit, the shader. But let's see, where's yeah, this one. So if I made it like higher, then it will expose more brick. And if I made it lower, like if I just did not want any brick ever, then I would just make it 0, you know, but that wasn't really what I wanted. Um, so like this, and in the shader, eh, so the wall shader required its own shader because it had a lot of like more unique stuff. So for the bricks itself, it's pretty self-explanatory. I just lerped I lerped between where is it? Is this one? This one's the moss. Yeah, these. So yeah, I just lerped between the brick, like the exposed version, and then also the clean version, and I just did that using a world align texture again, and with the same like packed dirt mask thing. So I recommend like when you start a project and you know you're gonna make a bunch of shaders, just get a bunch of noises that you find like that you think are interesting, and just pack them, put them in the put them in the engine, and whenever you want a noise, you're like, oh, maybe I want something, you know, a little bit like Gaussian, a little bit blobby, whatever, and then maybe you want one that's like sharp and kind of crazy. So just pack a bunch of them, like have them like at your disposal, so you can like whatever you feel like you need a noise, you can just get it, you know, because they're super useful for breaking up stuff. Like my my FX artist used a bunch of noises, and I just went like shopping in his material folder. Like I just went shopping for his like all the different noises that he used, and I would just use them randomly in my shader. But yeah, so I have this noise, it's world aligned, and then yeah, you know, I just do some stuff. I do the I power it just so I can tweak how much of the mask I want, and then I put it in the lerp with the base color and the plaster, and then I do the same for the normals. And then the other thing that I did for like to kind of add more variation was to have some moss at the bottom. So like because the ground is green, you know, it has grass, it made sense to me that it had a bit of blending onto the walls just to, you know, fade it in a little bit better. Otherwise, like it makes quite a harsh transition and adds some noise. So what I did here was I used the object position. Wait, no, that's oh yeah, that was just to do the same thing as before with the gradient from top to bottom. But this, so I used the world position, and then I added a bunch of multipliers, like added a bunch of like parameters to it, just so I can tweak it in the material instance. But basically, world position, I added the offset because like the ground level wasn't 0, and then added a multiplier for it just so I can tweak like how like the balance, I guess, would be the substance way of saying it, like the balance of the gradient mask. And then I no, and then I subtracted a noise from it, and this was like a not so tiled version of the noise because I wanted like some little noise to kind of cut out the moss. And of course, I put a parameter here so I can change it more. And then I saturated it, which is clamp but cheaper. Um, and then I used a even like a more tiled version of the noise just so I can get some like if I can show here because like some noise it like masks out like little blobs, right? But I also wanted bigger blobs to cut out of the moss. So then to do that, I did this. I just made it tile more, and then I added another parameter to that to tweak that part, and then I subtracted that from my previous results and multiply the results with another parameter just so I can really tweak it. And of course, with masks, you always have to make sure you saturate them before you put them into a lerp. Otherwise, you can get like a lot of artifacts and stuff. Yeah, if you're not like careful with the arithmetics, and which I'm not. So, um, so yeah, and then I just lerped that with the moss texture, and I just made that in Substance Designer. Yeah, so that's the wall shader. And then the next thing is the roof shader, which I can show here. So the roof shader, the issue with the roof was that because I was using the same roof mesh, like when you scale it, it does deform a little bit, but not enough for me to like be bothered by it. But the issue was that the UV would get stretched, you know? So in the shader itself, I modify the UVs to make sure that no matter how much you stretch it, like the UV would still stay the same so it doesn't get stretched out. And to do that, I will yes, this one. They always look so weird in the preview. But anyway, so to do that, all I did was where where did I put it? Um, for the oh yeah, this one. Okay, so I did a material function. Okay, right. So yeah, so here, like where I did the UVs for the textures, all I did was just use the object scale, and I scale the UV by the object scale, and then it wouldn't deform. So that was what I did to do that. Yeah, and then for the roof tiles, I first I wanted to actually displace them, but that was too expensive. So I ended up settling for just parallax occlusion mapping, which works fine. And really, the player doesn't ever get that close to see a difference, but it does create some artifacts down here. But it's okay. And but yeah, POM is just it's simple to set up. It's just a node. um, and yeah, for the rest, that's just pretty normal. Okay, so that's the roof texture. And then, right, and then the next thing, okay, no, I'll get into this later. The next thing is the water shader. So for the water shader, Well, first, like the water shader looked quite different actually. It used like this depth gradient and also it had transparency here. But my issue with that was that the reflections looked really bad. And for the art station shot, I wanted it to have nice transparent like nice reflections. So then I deleted all the depth fade stuff. Um, but but yeah. But now it looks like this and it has nice reflections, so it's all good. Yes, this one, my water. Okay, so for this one, I think the main thing, because water shaders are like there's plenty of really, really good tutorials for them online. But I think the only thing that I like like that was difficult for me to figure out was how to get these deformations on the edges of stuff, and I also wanted like a noise texture to be deformed by it, you know? And the way I figured out how to do that was so first I was using not first, but like the project is using distance fields. Like everything is generating distance fields, and I can show you like when you move it like this, it also updates in real time. So because it was using distance fields, I could use this node called distance to nearest object. Wait, this is it. Yeah, distance to nearest object. And what that does is it gives you a, let me see if I can, it's an edge foam. Yeah. So this, yeah, distance to nearest surface. And what this gives you is like a gradient where black, or like not, it's not black, but like where a very low value or like a yeah the dark value would be, or it's the opposite way around, I don't know, but it basically makes a gradient. So the closer it is to the surface it will be a different color, and then the further it is it will be like darker or lighter. I don't know exactly which one it is, but it will do that. And then what I did was, this is like not the perfect way of doing it, but this is the way I figured out how to do it, was if I just took the R value of this one and then I use the texture coordinates for for the G value, and then I put that in the UV. It gave me like a okay noise that deforms with the edge of the like where it meets a object, you know? And so this is what I did, and then I did a panning thing, so it like and I put that into a sine, so it like the noise goes in and then it goes out, you know? So it does that thing where it like yeah, it goes into the surface and then it goes out of the surface. It's quite subtle, but it's there. And then yeah, put that into a noise, and that's basically like all there is to the edge foam. Like there's some more here. Oh yeah, but that was just to add some extra variation into the edge foam because I wanted like a thick line here that was not like a straight line. It still had some like noisiness to it. And then I also wanted that secondary noise on the outside. But they were basically just using the same UVs. And for this one, I believe this one, yeah, so this one is like the more like big blobby noise that I was maxing with this with the rest of the graph to get some like roundedness on the edge, like the on the thick line. Yeah. Okay, so that's the water shader. And then also so for the what is this? A waterfall. For the waterfall shader, it used a very similar technique. Uh but I just added some extra noise. So for this, I just looked like Genshin Impact's like how their waterfall looked, and I tried to get something similar. So the two big things with the water shader is first like this noise that goes down in the in the thing, and then also like some Fresnel on the top so it's lighter on the top. Or did I use that with the UV gradient? I'm not super sure, but both would have achieved the same result. Um, and for here, let me see. Okay, so for this noise, it's just like yeah, it's just a noise texture that pans down the UV. And then I also had, if I zoom in a little bit, I also layered some other noise on top. I think I just use a caustics texture for this thing. It's just like a stretched caustics texture, and then I use the same caustics texture, but like a bit more panned, so it wasn't like the same exact texture. And I made that like super bright, you know, super contrasty. So I could use that for the foam. Um, and let me, if I go into the thing. Yeah, so you see here, I just use a caustic. Oh my God, that's such a difficult word to say many times. Uh, but yeah, I use this caustics texture for the for like the very sharp foam, and I use smooth step, which is a really nice node. I really like using smooth step, and this is because sometimes you want to like clamp a value, but you don't really know where exactly you want to clamp it, you know? And then you have to do some like arithmetic to get it to clamp properly. But with smooth step, all you have to do is tell it like what the min and max is, and it will just make everything lower than the min black and everything higher than the max white. So that's really useful if you want to like instantly make something like cut an edge off of a gradient, you know? Like contrast a gradient, use that. And then, yeah, I added the Fresnel to that, and that's probably the Fresnel that you see on the top of the right there. I hope you can see my cursor. And then, yeah, and then I just use that as a mask to lerp the accent colors and stuff. Um, and for the waterfall, for the rest of the waterfall, let me see. Yeah, so for the rest of the waterfall, I was using the same caustics texture. Was I? No, I was not. I was using this texture for the waterfall. And then for this noise, oh, this noise was for something else. This noise is for the village morphing, which I'm gonna get into later. And yeah, and I just yeah, these are just masks that I put in. And this, oh yeah, this is really nice. This is really nice, but I wouldn't say it's very like very necessary. So it's really nice sometimes if you have a texture like this, which is just like if I open it, it's just a gradient, like a bunch of gradients. So for example, the blue is just like top to bottom gradient, you know, and then the green is a gradient with white in the middle, and then the red is a gradient on the sides, you know, so it's like white in the middle vertically. And this is nice to have because then you don't have to do it manually, but it's not necessary because then you can just because to achieve the same effect, you could just use the texture coordinate gradient, you know, to make a gradient. So oh, maybe I should demonstrate how to do that. But you could just use a texture coordinate, and then you could mask. If you mask out the R, and if I preview this, it's gonna show up eventually. Will it show up? Oh, maybe if I put it in a multiply, it will update. Oh no, no, it has to compile. Okay, it's fine. So if you like mask out the R, I keep forgetting which color is which. I think the R is the X, right? So then it should give you a left to right gradient, and then the Y is top to bottom. So the G would be top to bottom, so it gives you a top to bottom gradient. And then once you have that gradient, you can just like power it, multiply it, do whatever, add it onto one on the other side, and you could just have the same gradient. And you can change that real time in engine, which is like more convenient. But sometimes it's nice to have a texture like this. So um, pick whichever one works best for you. Um, okay, now I'll delete this. Oh, now it has to compile again. Okay. Um, but yeah, that's basically yeah, and it uses the same edge foam material function as before because I wanted the edge foam on here as well. Oh yeah, one note about the using the distance to nearest surface node is that everything else needs to be contributing in distance fields, but then the object like that you have the shader on can't contribute, you know? So if I search distance, yeah. So you can see here, where do I have it? Yeah, this one, affect distance field lighting. So this one, wait, but this, oh, because I think it's, wait, let me show it to you here. Yeah, so this one does affect distance field lighting, but if you see here on this one doesn't because this one needs the edge foam. I don't know why this one is grayed out, but I mean, it works, so. But but the object like the water itself should not contribute to distance field lighting just so that otherwise we're gonna get these artifacts if I just turn this on. Okay, wait, why does it not affect something? It should. I don't know why it doesn't. Oh, maybe it's a plane, so it doesn't really matter. But like, if I, for example, if I say here, for it to not affect distance field lighting, it won't like, it won't make the rim, right? Because it doesn't, it's not in the distance field anymore. Maybe I can show it better here with this thing. Yeah, maybe this. Yeah, so for this one, if I turn this off, you see it starts making a lot of artifacts because basically if you tell this one to affect distance field, it's going to collide with itself basically. So yeah, if you want to use this technique, make sure to turn that off. Okay. That was the water shader. And then, yes, and then in total, I just wanted to make some like notes about the localization thing. So some of the notes that I always use to add localization is, of course, the world position shader. No, not shader, the world position node in the shader. So that's for making the gradient here to the bottom. I also use the same thing up here, and that's basically like just finding the bottom of the object itself, and then you multiply that with the AO of the roof tile, and it will make like these roof things, like this moss inside the roof. I can show how it looks like when you tweak the parameter. I have so many tabs open. I'm gonna close them all at once. But when you do the thing, yeah. So if you change the offset, for example, it will offset the whole thing. And then if you change the multiplier, it will like make very dense moss on the bottom and then very like lighter moss on the top. This is not a perfect way of doing it. Like I'm definitely like, it's not very normalized, these values. But it worked fine within the time frame for me. So that's okay. And then also you can adjust like the AO power of like the contribution of the AO in the moss. So you can see like barely a difference. But yeah, maybe it's this one. I'm not sure which one it is. But yeah, so you can adjust all of these things. And using like when you multiply it with the like the gradient with the AO, it will make like this nice gradient from top to bottom with like some nice moss inside the crevices. Okay, I'm gonna close these now. No. Okay. All right, so next thing is, yeah, right. So world position, that was the thing. And then the second note that I wanted to talk about was the world space normal. So I use that on the rocks because the rocks, oh, the back looks like so much worse than the front because I didn't polish it. But basically when you want something to like, when you want moss, for example, on top of something, or maybe you want like dirt only on the faces that are looking downwards, you use this rule space normal node, which is like super, it's super useful. It's super like, it gets you like good results fast as well. Okay, I'm using instances within instances. Okay, so this is the shader that I used for the rocks. So here, what you do is you get the world space normal of the object. Let me see if where you do that. Um, World space normal. Normal, yep, yep. Oh, it wasn't in normal, it should be in base color. Okay. Yes. So what you do is you take the normal map. If you have a normal map for the object, you use a normal map. You transform that into world space because we're going to be working with world space because the vertex normals are in world space. So then you take the vertex normals of the world space just so you know exactly where they're pointing up in the world. And then you blend them together using this node, which, yeah, blends the normals together. And then if you want to adjust which direction that you want the moss to come from, then you add a dot product with the like with a vector 3, and in which you just you tell them which direction the moss should be coming from, and then yeah, you clamp that and then you put that as a mask to lerp between your moss and whatever. So I can show you this in practice. Yes, it's down here. So, oh my, I used funky values because I really wanted the edge to be sharp. But basically the idea is like now if you change this, okay, because this value is so high it doesn't really work anymore. But for example, if I made all of these one, if I made all of these, yeah. And then I tweak this, and then wait, am I looking at the right thing? Oh, I should be looking at this one. Right, okay. So for this one, now you can see like the moss direction changing, and then I can also change this one, and then this one. And you can see that they change in different axes. So that's another good thing for localization. And then the last thing is, yeah, noise, but I already talked about that. So get some good noise textures and use them when you make the shaders. And you can like already add a lot of detail without that much work. Okay. Now the next thing is oh, how am I doing on time? I'm at 45 minutes, right? Okay, okay. So okay. So last thing I wanted to talk about for tech wise was the foliage. So for the foliage themselves, um yes, okay. So for the foliage, I use the foliage system in Unreal, and this was really nice because then I didn't have to hand place anything. So every ivy is just like a small piece of ivy, and then I can just like paint them on. And this is like really nice to work fast because like hand placing them would be a pain, and you can totally just take advantage of this. So that's what I did for all the foliage. I just placed them like using the foliage tool, and it's also much better for performance because Unreal will instance all your foliages, so you can have like tens of thousands of grass, and it still wouldn't care because it's instanced, you know? So that's really nice. And for the shader themselves, so I actually got this trick from Jasmine. And what she did was she had like one ivy that was lit. So this one isn't actually like this one is lit, but it's using tangent space normals, so it doesn't have like a specular. And then this one does have a specular, this other ivy. And when you look at it from like kind of far away, the ones that have a specular add a little bit of detail that's really nice. So I alternated between the two to get some more detail in places that I wanted it to. And also like having that specular also gives you that like volume looking feel, you know, because with if you just had tangent space normals on like all of the ivy, it tends to look kind of flat unless you get really nice shadows on them. So having those highlights from those ivy also really helped. And I'll dive into the shader for that now. Um, which is here, Foliage Master. Okay, so okay, this is really spaghetti, but so basically the two main things here is first the tangent space normals. Tangent. Okay, so by default, Unreal will have this ticked on because then it will make the thing shade properly, you know? Because when you have a normal object, I can show it to you. I'm gonna exit foliage mode now. So if you look at the buffer and you see the world normal, you see how like all of these they have a world normal, and that's how they get lit properly. But basically what you say with a tangent space normal is you want it to always be shaded as if it is looking directly at the camera, like as if every normal on the mesh is looking directly at the camera, which means that it won't be shaded with like a specular and stuff like that, you know? So you can like see it here because these foliages have tangent space normal. Don't they don't have the same normals as the rest of the houses and stuff. So yeah, that's like one trick to get them looking flat. Um, and also they look flat, but they also like still get AO and stuff, so they still like have some detail in that shadows and stuff. So that's one thing. And then the next thing was to get all the green values like looking the same. Because I think like one issue that I used to run into a lot was I used to have all kinds of different shades of green in my in my foliage. And that was not so nice. So now I mostly just have like this lime greenish looking thing for most of it, and then to add some variation, I hue shift some of the foliages to be a bit more blue to add a bit of variation. But to keep them all the same, and also to blend the grass with the terrain, it doesn't. It used to perfectly blend. I'm not really sure what happened, but they used to perfectly blend, and they blend fine on the render, so it doesn't really matter. But the way I made that blend was on the landscape, I used a certain UV, like the world position UV to get the grass texture, and then I just used those same UVs with the same texture on the foliage itself, and that ensured that I had like the same colors, right? Um, so that was that. Yeah. So on the landscape thing, to like on the grass layer of the landscape, I just use this exact like these exact notes. Um and then was there anything else special that I did to the grass and stuff? To get them to move, I believe I just used a simple grass wind, although I don't know if I ended up using that. No, I didn't use the simple grass wind. Okay, so instead of using simple grass wind, I went with this instead, which is, I mean, does the same thing basically. It's just um, like one noise that has less tiling and one with more tiling, and then you just did I yeah and then you lerp between them with 0.5 so that you combine them, and then clamp that, and then you just use that in the world position offset. Um, but yeah, it's just a noise with some parameters on the like on the movement and stuff. And then I also had this like light specular that went on the foliage. You can kind of see it. I ended up toning it down because it was like too noisy at some point, but it's still very subtly there. And to do that, yeah, and to do that, I use the same mask that I used for the roll position offset, but I multiplied that with a color parameter, which is the wind color, and then I added that on top of the foliage color. So that's how I got the light specular. Um, and let's see what else I did. Right, so with this grass, I had some issues with this grass because I wanted it to have some shadows. But then like if it had shadows, it would be like really expensive. So I didn't end up using any shadows on them. But like the way I kind of compromised on it was I had like a bit of a gradient. Okay, like if you see here, the bottom is ever so slightly darker than the top. And what this does is just it like kind of looks like it's lit, but it's not. And then also for the wind, I made sure to like only affect like so because I had a black and white text like a black and white gradient going from the top to bottom, and I masked out the wind so it only affects the very tip of the grass, so that like when it comes through, you see that gradient even more, and it makes the grass feel more lit than they are. Okay, so that's that. Yeah, and then for the variation on the trees and stuff, like the trees and the bushes, I just did the same thing that I did with the color variation on the texture master. So I just did the thing with like the noise texture that's really like tiled really big in rule space, and then I hue shifted it. Yes, hue shift, and the hue shift percentage comes from here. Yeah, and this is the noise that I was talking about. And then that noise gets remapped to the intensity. And then, and this time I put a parameter here because different kind of foliage, I wanted it to have a different like change in color. And then I just put that into the modulation for the hue shift that goes into the emissive. Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. So this is another thing. So sometimes like I this is kind of hacky, I guess, but sometimes I really needed to like change because if you have them just in base color, sometimes they go really dark, and then I wanted them to be a bit brighter. So then I just put a little bit of emissive in it, just so like even if they're in shadow, they still don't look so dark. Um, and so yeah, that was the way I did that, because like otherwise when are lit, like their shadows get super dark. So actually, I think the base color ended up being toned down quite a bit, and then I did a lot of the coloring in the emissive itself, just to make sure that those shadows aren't like black. Um, okay. Yep. Okay, and the very last thing that I wanted to talk about, which is something that I didn't actually get to showcase in the ArtStation post, was that for the game, we had we wanted the village to morph. So in the beginning, it was like super dark and foggy, and then as you progressed in the world, like in the different levels, the village would get like a lot more brighter and stuff. And some of this we do this in code, but it's still sampling the same material parameter collection. So this is a material parameter collection, and I think of this as kind of like global variables for shaders, you know? So this is just an object, you put this anywhere, and then you can store like different parameters in it, and you can use these parameters in any shader, and you can just use that to drive a lot of shaders at once, you know? So for example, like for the water, these are names funny, but so for water bad, which is yeah, how bad the water is, I wanted it to both drive the water shader and also the like the waterfall shader. So and when I go from 0 to 1, okay, you can see this maybe better in the in the ocean. But it goes from like clear blue nice water to like foggy, okay, this is too much, but like foggy bad water, you know? And then I added like some extra algae and some extra like leaves on the in the lake and stuff like that, um for like just to accentuate that it's bad water. And then the same thing goes for earth bad. So I have like I think like two or three foliage shaders that are basically the same but slightly different, just for cases where I needed just something. And to drive them all at once, I use this parameter collection, and I can just zoom in a bit here so you can see better. So this is good grass, and then as it evolves, you can see that it goes slowly into like bad grass. You know, it's like dead and stuff. Um, so yeah, that's that. And also the virtual texture on the terrain changes as well, but it doesn't update like frequently enough, so you don't really get to see it. But yeah, that's that one. And then the air bad. Okay, so the air bad changes the fog. So it goes from like like I guess normal fog to like dark, not so nice fog. And this is a post processing. This is a post like to change the color of the fog in real time. You could also I think probably change it in the volumetric like fog like object in Blueprint, but instead this is just a post process effect where you map the depth the depth pass to a gradient, and it just gives you a gradient with the depth pass. And then the last is fire bad, but that one actually doesn't have any effect on any shaders, except it makes the windows light up at night. Um, yeah, but you can't see that because it's day. But and also it drives like in code it drives these lanterns and stuff like that, but that's not something that you can see here in editor. So that's that, and I highly recommend like I don't know how applicable this is for just like a personal project, but if you're making a game and you have like these kind of things that needs to drive multiple shaders at once, material parameter collections are like so good for that, and they solve like all your problems in that way. Okay, so okay, I'm done with the tech stuff. Now I'll talk about colors, compositions, and stuff. Okay, so maybe I could pull up a whip of the village in the beginning, but the village, like the look of the village definitely evolved a lot over time. And so the composition intentions for this village was first that the houses themselves, if I could maybe take a screenshot so I can draw on it. Oh no, I'm way over time. Okay. Okay, so basically the windmill is like a focal point, right? And then it makes this triangle that kind of go down, and this is like further accentuated by this is there's like a hill back here, and there's like these houses that are like a bit further up, and that makes this triangle. And to balance that out, I have these cliffs that go like this, right? So then balance each other out because you have like this curve that's going up here, and then you have like this curve that's going down here. And then to further accentuate that, like I added the clouds. I just painted them by hand, and they're on the texture in the shader. And these clouds like accentuate that curve that goes downwards, and that curve also points towards the focal point. So that's kind of like the like the big picture of the composition. And obviously, like within the thing, there's also some leading lines. Like it's really nice to use perspective as a way to create leading lines. Like for example, this one, like okay, this one doesn't like really showcase it well. But for example, if I had oh, I do have it. I have like these flags over here. They create a leading line here, but I didn't have to like I did rotate them up a little bit, but because of perspective, they end up converging towards the focal point anyway. You know, so for example, like this one, these flags, they end up converging towards the focal point area. And so whenever you have like a composition and you have a focal point, like let the elements like converge to the focal point, like the different leading lines, let them converge to the focal point using perspective. Because that's like a really because that's a really natural way to do it, you know, so you don't have to like rotate anything in a really weird way just to create a leading line. And the same thing for these docks. So these docks are like kind of pointing towards this path that is a path like on the land, and then it points towards this area as well. And I think that's the main notes I had on composition. And then for the colors, I think when like creating a stylized scene, it's super important to like look at the post processing. So if I just disable the post processing, you can see it like looks super bad. So not only is it super bad, it's also overexposed. And I think to get that really dreamy feeling, it's like a really good choice to to have it be overexposed before you put the post process on it. And then in the post process, like you tone down the highlights, and it makes for this like I don't know what it does, but it does something nice. So for stylized scenes, definitely like go for something like that. And obviously in the post process, I also like saturated the things a lot more. I did some color grading. Yeah, I did like color grading for and for color grading, basically all I do is I just enable a parameter and I slide the slider around until I think it makes it look better. And then if I don't think it looks better, like no matter what I do, then I don't use that parameter. So that's color grading 101. And then, oh yeah, and then I recently discovered, oh, not recently, but I discovered too late this film thing. And what this does is like I guess it lets you really like tweak the values in the scene, you know? Like these like dark and midtones and highlights and stuff, and like lets you tweak them in a really nice way that gets you like really cool results. Okay, this looks bad though, so I'm gonna undo it. Okay, yeah. But but that's a really fun thing to play with as well. Um, and that's colors. And then the clouds I already talked about. I just painted them. I looked at some reference of Ghibli clouds and then I painted them in Photoshop. I can show you the texture. Yeah, I put the texture here. This one. So I just did that in Photoshop and it uses a unlit oh, where did I go? And it uses a unlit material in here that has like a depth fade. I don't know, remember why. Oh yeah, this was for another level that I added the depth fade, but they don't actually contribute anything to this level. Okay. And then, right. So issues that I ran into. So the two biggest issues that I ran into was first the foliage, like the noise of the foliage. Even now I think like some of these bushes are still a bit too noisy. Um, but like the base like basically at one point all of like these planes of trees like the planes on the trees were all being like shadowed, and that made for like really ugly shadows, like kind of like this but even worse, and then all over all the trees, you know. And then and like I said before, to balance it out, all you need to do is add like let most of the color come from the emissive, just so you like really lighten up the shadows a lot, and so it makes for like a more cohesive shadowing thing for the foliage. Um, and and also, yeah, I reworked the foliage texture a couple of times. I'm still not perfectly happy with it. But like I went for, because a lot of the trees you see them from much further away, I went for like bigger leaves and like bigger detail instead of like painting in every leaf and stuff like that because it wasn't worth it for the amount of noise. Um, and then yeah, and then another issue that I had was figuring out the composition, and my mentor Jerice helped so much with the composition, like because I literally like in the beginning I had no idea what I was doing, but yeah, like in this project I definitely learned a lot more about it, like how you have to really utilize the lines and like the volumes and shapes in the scene. And I think to be honest, that's just something that maybe comes from I'll get better at it with experience and stuff. But like when you put together a scene, I think like sometimes I just put down things without thinking about where they are, you know? And something that I've really learned, like also in my internship a lot as well, is to really have intentions on what you're placing. You know, don't just place something there because you want to place it there. Like place it there because you think, like only place it there because you think that it will actually have a good impact on the scene, you know? Because I think if you just play stuff without really thinking, you're gonna end up with a scene that you don't really know what's going on and you don't really know what you want with the scene, you know? So that's that. Okay, yeah, I'm way over time, so I'm gonna stop now. Thank you.
Oh wait, what? You're gonna what else do you have to cover?
No, that was it. That was
Oh,
it on my
okay.
outline.
That's awesome. Okay, well, I guess we can get to the and you're like, and I'm done. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm
cool.
done.
Okay, so I'm gonna get to these questions that are in here. This first group of questions, I have no idea how serious.
I mean, I
Uh,
don't mind answering them.
well, okay. So how did the Dynasty Discord influence you as an artist? I didn't write this. I swear to you.
Yeah, I think I can definitely contribute the Dynasty Discord as one of the things that made me grow the most as an artist. Like joining here and being a part of the community. Because I joined here when I was like in my final, I think almost my final year of uni or something, and I like back then. I really had no idea what was going on in the industry, you know? I was just like, yeah, I like making environments. Like, I'll just apply for a job, and being in here and being able to talk to people who are in the industry and have actual jobs in the industry and stuff like that, like it really changes your perspective on, you know, how the industry works, what you should do to have a better portfolio, and the feedback here is always amazing, and everyone is super supportive, so yeah.
Awesome. That's that's great. The next one is how did Kaz influence you as a person?
Yeah, you know, actually, I saw this question before I was preparing for, no, like when I was preparing for the talk, and then I thought about the question, and I have a good answer, okay? I think Kaze influenced my tolerance for bad jokes. And I think his presence makes me happy, which makes me a better person. So that's how he has influenced me.
Wow, so a burn with like sugar on top. Uh,
Hmm.
but what are your goals for the future, and do you target a specific position in the future?
Mm, I
Future
don't
can
know.
be really long as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean all I wanna like all I know is I wanna just keep doing what I like doing. And yeah, that's my goal.
Okay. How do you straddle the line of balancing realistic focus work and stylized design without accidentally overlapping?
Um, I don't. Like I think there's benefits for realistic, like people who to do environments or whatever in a realistic style to explore the stylized style, and vice versa. Because obviously with stylized, like you have to know how it looks in real life before you make it stylized. And then with realistic, I think there's like with stylized scenes, I think you have to like make things a bit. I don't want to say simple as if it's easier, but you have to simplify compositions. You can't rely on like grunge or greeble or stuff like that. And because of that, I think both like I think it's good to know both styles. And obviously, if I'm making a scene that's photorealistic and I do something that's kind of stylized, I won't I like I'll see that and say no. This doesn't fit, so I'll not do that, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like I guess a good example is like the wood material that you have in your scene. It's when you go stylized, it's like taking the what's the word for it? Like
Since
just the base things needed in order to say this is a wood material, and then
mhm.
accentuating those through your style.
Yes.
Um, let's see what inspires you most.
Mm, I don't know. I mean, like realistically, just concept art. If I see nice concept art, I get inspired and I want to make the concept art. Otherwise, like seeing other people's works, that's always very inspiring. Um, yeah.
How do you recharge from feeling burnt out or exhausted?
Um, I wouldn't say I've felt burned out ever. I do feel like tired when I get off from work and stuff, but I wouldn't call that exhausted. But I think like the most important thing is I like to work on personal projects in my free time, but if I want to play games with friends, then I will. Like I will never stop myself from having fun outside of work and stuff. And
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. Um, oh, this question's actually for me. Merch is on the way. Don't you worry, DefCon. Um, how and what do you use to keep a good organization for a big project like this?
Well, most of my projects, I just make a folder for materials and then like a folder for meshes and stuff like that. And that's it. For this one, it's a bit more organized because I was working in a team. And, when you're working on a team, you can't afford to be disorganized, you know? Um, I mean, normally if I just have like a okay folder structure, I just follow it and things never really get out of hand. Um, Otherwise, I don't really use anything to be organized.
Oh, really? Like there's you don't have like any programs or tools that you use to organize? It's just your folder structure?
Yeah.
Dude, that's hardcore. Okay.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Am I supposed to use something? I don't.
I don't I mean if it works, it works.
Yeah, it works.
I think once you hit a certain um what is it? A certain capacity where it's just like there's so many things you're tracking. I had like for me I have to write it down or note it down
Right.
somewhere. But
Yeah, yeah, that
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah, I get like I haven't
Maybe
worked
I'm
on a
just getting
project big
old.
enough. No, 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 no.
um, so Polygon asks, you seem quite technically aware as an artist. Are there any techniques or processes that you think are important for students to learn or explore in terms of tech art?
Yeah. I think like DIE was really nice because they had courses that forced not forced us, but yeah, kind of forced us to learn stuff like shaders and scripting in Python and blueprints and stuff like that. And knowing those things as an artist can really help you in personal projects. Like for example, we had an FX course, even though I have no interest in doing FX in my life. But that, like for example, I used Niagara systems to do these lanterns and to do the birds, And no, the FX artist made the smoke, but if I wanted to, I could also make the smoke, And not having to like if you're in a personal project and you want to do something that material system oh not material particle systems could do really well, and then you don't do it with particle systems, you're making yourself slower, and making your life harder. So knowing that, and also stuff like blueprints, like the windmill is the blueprint that I tell it to rotate, And the same thing with this water mill, it's also rotating. And I just do that in the blueprint as well, and it's super simple. It's literally just a rotate. But like knowing that, you it makes like that specifically makes your scene feel a lot more alive. And then the last thing would be shaders. Like knowing shaders just makes your life so much easier because it's in engine. If you want to have a small tweak, you don't have to actually tweak the texture. You can just do a hue shift in the shader and tweak it in a material instance. Like that, all that kind of stuff makes your life super easy. Yeah,
Nice.
which is good.
Which
Nice.
is good. Yeah, super easy is good.
Yes.
um, how do you balance personal work and work/school that takes up 8+ hours?
um, yeah, that's something that I've been learning. I don't like I guess it's the same question as before. Like I mean, yeah, I have to go to work and then I go to work and after work, if I don't feel like working on personal projects, I just won't and then I will have fun or work out or do whatever. Um so I mean, it's not really something that I can be like, "Oh yeah, I do 2 hours of this, 2 hours of that," and then that's how I balance it. I think it's just something that like for a while, I guess I didn't really balance it, and then I just learned more like, okay, if I do this at this time, then I have enough time to do this, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's how much. Yeah, everyone has the same amount of time in a day,
Yeah,
right? So you're figuring out when to use your time for what.
yeah, exactly.
Um, what would you say was the most challenging thing about this project? You may have answered it in the
Yeah, yeah, the composition,
just
definitely.
the composition. Okay.
Mhm.
Considering this is a interesting question. Considering you didn't do 3D before school, what are some things that allowed you to grow this quickly?
Um, I don't know if I have a good answer to that. But like, yeah, like I didn't do 3D before school. It was the first time I touched 3D in the program. But I think like I mean I can't really I don't know, but the program itself, they ease you in 3D like very, very slowly. Wait, actually, this might be funny. I could show you one of my first 3D projects.
Oh, yes,
Um,
please.
yes, yes, I have it on Sketchfab. Let me show you. Let me show you. Uh, do I even still have? Oh yeah, I have it. Okay. Okay, yeah. So this was my first Sketchfab thing. Do you see it?
It's loading.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh my god. Yeah, this is my first Sketchfab thing, and this is during this 3D low poly course. And basically, what we did was we like to texture things. We exported the UV layout from 3ds Max, and then we took pictures from like Google Maps, or not Google Maps, from Google, and then we put them on the thing, and that's how we textured things. And so this was my first 3D project. When was this? This was 3 years ago. Yeah. And then the exam for that project was this, which was the city scene, which I can barely look at anymore.
The
But it's
thumbnail
really
looked really good. Oh,
I
dude,
mean,
that's awesome.
no, 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 dude. Like, oh my god, it has so many issues. Yeah, so like these rocks, they didn't have smoothing grooves, and then they have like this super stretched rock texture on top. And then look, like the foliage was just I think like two planes with like a picture. This is all textures.com. Like textures.com pulled through for me. And then oh my god, and then this whole thing.
Oh, that's
And I
amazing.
literally did you see how I just beveled it and I didn't care about the UV seam? Oh yeah, and then there's UV seams here as well.
Dude, I don't know
Yeah,
what you're
so
talking about. Those are cracks in the rock. That's fine.
oh. I should have told my examiner that. Yeah, but yeah, so this was the first semester, and they really ease you into it, and they teach you like different techniques like modular working and stuff like that. And then at some point, like I knew enough to kind of do my own thing, and that's when I started doing personal projects, and then and yeah, like looking online for things that I like that I wanted to learn and stuff. I think like the biggest thing to learn, especially when you're working on in a I guess a tech industry, is to know how to Google, like know how to search for stuff. If you want to do something, knowing how to Google and knowing how to get to a point where you can do the thing, um, is the most important because it's constantly evolving. So yeah, you have to
It's kind of
always
it
yeah.
dives into the next question, which is would you say that you got the most of your knowledge at school, or was it pure personal curiosity that drove you to learn more than what the school could provide?
I would say during my first and most of my second year, I didn't. really like learn anything outside of school in 3D because I just wasn't like so comfortable with 3D, you know? But afterwards, like after I figured out that like okay, I want to do environments, I want to do this, I want to do that, then like I looked more at like talks and online tutorials and stuff, especially when I'm working on personal projects and I'm like, for example, like how do I get the foliage shading to look better? Then I would like look online like how do other people do their stylized foliage and learn more about that and then apply that to the project. I think everything I learn is very project based. Like I rarely like learn something just to learn it. Almost always learn something because I need it for a project. So, yeah.
Nice. Okay. Uh, questions about your water shader. Did you obtain the knowledge of how to build it from any tutorials, or did you teach yourself?
Yeah, so for the water shader, I had made another water shader before and like I've with that I followed a tutorial and then this time I just went from memory to build it. So I guess kind of. And for the distance field thing, like I was trying to go online to find a tutorial that made me like that let me do this, and then I couldn't find a tutorial. So for this I just figured it out. Because the UV is a gradient, the distance field is a gradient. You can put them together. Like yeah.
Nice. Let's see here. We've got two more questions,
Mhm.
and then you are free to go. Um,
Ooh.
ooh. uh, could you undo one of your houses to see how it's modular, like how it's combined and whatnot?
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. I can. I can just
Oh,
do
Chris is
this.
writing something to add more questions.
Yeah. Oh, I'm definitely not gonna save this level once I'm done. Oh yeah,
It's
another
gonna
good thing
auto
about using
save
the
on you.
foliage tool. Oh no, autosave won't like make it the actual one. Like this. I guess I could do a exploded view. And then here's like a flower pot. Eh. Oh, computer is glitching.
I guess because it's building your
Navigation, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then phew.
It's
I mean
like
these are just all the same pieces and then the roof is like this.
if we had an explode button, that'd be so nice.
Yeah. I mean, no, I think I would accidentally like click it and then undo would crash and would
Oh
just not
no.
work. Okay, yeah. But this is like, I guess, kind of an exploded view, right? Like this is, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, that looks good.
I hope that's good. I don't know.
Is it? Sorry, I just have a quick question that's not related to
Mhm.
the questions in chat. Is the barrel textured with the same trim sheet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything is textured with the same trim sheet except when it's unique.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Were you able to increase your knowledge of using technical parameters in Unreal to really push your shaders? Where was?
What does that mean?
Wait. Hang on. I need to reread this. Uh,
Where were you able to
where were
increase
you
your
able
knowledge?
to increase your knowledge of using technical parameters in Unreal to really push your shaders? I was like, where did you get all of the knowledge that where you're like, if you look at your shaders, you're going pretty deep into things. I guess is it just from the technical background that you have, or
Oh, I mean, well, I don't really have a technical background, but with the nose, I mean, if I have a issue with a shader that I can't fix, I can't really think of a specific example, but like if I had an issue and I didn't know how to fix it, like I would just Google it to see if anyone else has done the same thing, you know, and then just do what they did.
mm,
But I think like I mean most shaders once you know like position, world space like the world space normal of the objects and stuff like you can do most things with just like add multiply those nodes, you know, like most things can be done with just that. And with other things, I guess like part of it I learned from school, and then the other part would be mm, yeah, yeah, maybe like tutorials or online stuff that I read or something. Like there's no like one concentrated place that I get like that I got my knowledge in shaders from.
right? It's just it sounds like it's just you wanting to answer your own questions.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then the last question is, would you? This is Chris Rasley. Would you want to collab with me on a future project?
with him, because
Yeah.
I'm reading who would you
Oh, who would you?
want to
Oh,
I
I'm
mean,
reading it
oh,
as
wait, no,
Chris.
no,
I'm reading
but
it
I
as
would wanna collab
Chris.
with you, though.
Yeah,
I would
Chris,
be
she's
no,
gonna collab with you now. I put the words in your mouth. It's too late. You've signed the contract, Chris.
Okay, Chris, let's go.
Yeah, who? Okay, so who do you want to collab with? Out of curiosity, like, is there someone that you really want to like make a scene with?
Oh, actually, I'm planning on making a scene with some of my best friends right now. They're wait, I'm gonna give them a shout out.
Do it.
Yes. Yes, yes. Okay, wait. Since I'm on Sketchfab, I can just do it on Sketchfab because like they're one of the only people that I follow. Okay. Oh, but maybe I should just go on our station. Okay, whatever. So one of my best friends, Malwina, she does stylized art. She's really good, and I'm gonna collab with her. And then her boyfriend Leonard. Oh my god, I don't know if he's watching, but I don't think I follow him on
Oh
Sketchfab.
no,
Oh my god. Okay, okay. He has an art station. Wait, let me just.
that was the last question, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. Is this him? This is him. Yeah, and he is a character artist, and he's really good.
Oh
And
man,
we're
that
gonna
recent
collab
one.
together. Yeah, yeah, it's sick. Yeah, but we're gonna collab. But other than that, I would say um probably Jasmine. I think I would really like to collab with her. She's really nice
Oh
and
my
also really,
gosh.
really good. So yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yep. And then maybe I think it would be really cool to collab with a concept artist. I think that would be like I have
Oh
a couple of I don't know any by name, but I follow some concept artists that are like so sick. And yeah, maybe also a realistic like someone who does realistic art. But
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's
Anyway,
interesting.
yes, yes.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, Yin, thank you very much for answering all of our questions and giving your talk. You went an hour and 22 minutes, and you were scared it wasn't going to be long enough.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what I was ever scared of. Was it too long though? Do you feel
No,
like
that was great.
okay, okay.
It's great information in
Nice.
there. You were like, "Oh, and I'm done." And I'm like, "Wait, is there? If there's actually more, you should keep going." No, it's really good. Thank you very much.
Mhm. Thank you.
Um, all right. Do you want to say bye to everyone, and I'll just kill everything?
Yes.
I'll kill all the
Yes, yes,
mics.
yes. Oh, okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much for coming to my talk. Thank you for coming to YinCon week 3.
Oh my god. All right. Thanks everyone. I will see you tomorrow. What
Yes.
I think it's Discord critiques tomorrow for the whole 2 hours.
Oh,
Oh
nice.
yeah, good
Critiques.
times. I'm gonna lose my voice. It's gonna be great.
Hey.
Hey. All right. I will talk to you guys later. Have a good
Okay,
evening.
bye.